tap on her shoulder, and she looked away from the elephants. Naigassi beckoned her over and crouched down, pointing to something on the ground. She looked at it and gasped. In the soft orange earth was the perfect outline of a large paw print. Olgatoni, he said. Lion, he added for Cecily's benefit. Yes, a lion. Bill's voice sounded out from above her. He was here quite recently too, judging by the sharp outlines of the track. Naigassi can distinguish between individual cattle, and he once tracked and killed a leopard that had been prowling around his enkang. That's his village to you, Cecily, he said, clapping the taller man on the back. It's too close to our camp for my liking. We need to be careful. As the two men walked to a spot a few yards away, deep in conversation, Cecily stayed where she was, staring at the paw print in front of her. She reached out to touch it gingerly, her heart thumping at the thought of how huge the lion must be if his paw had left a mark this size. Back at camp 10 minutes later, Cecily sat down gratefully. Sipping some tea, she watched the sun slip gently below the horizon, the fever trees forming sharp black outlines in the landscape. A large fire had been lit, and Catherine appeared beside her to tuck a blanket around Cecily's shoulders as the temperature began to plummet. She watched, fascinated, as the Maasai prepared the kudu flesh on spits, and the air was soon filled with the enticing aroma of roasting meat. Given the fact she'd witnessed the animal's grisly demise, Cecily was ashamed to feel her stomach growl with hunger. Dusk turned to night, and Cecily looked up to find the heavens filled with more stars than she had ever seen. Bobby and Bill were drinking beer beside the campfire as they discussed the day's shoot and ate the proceeds of it. Here, darling. Catherine handed her a hunk of steaming meat, folded into flatbread that had been warmed over the fire. Thank you. Cecily smiled gratefully and took a tentative bite. It was delicious. After dinner, she sat back and listened to the soft murmurings of conversation around the campfire. She was glad of it. The flickering flames and the wood smoke curling up into the velvety night sky made the camp feel like a safe haven. However, as occasional cries and barks of unidentified animals came out of the darkness, Cecily was still relieved at the thought of the heavy rifle that lay casually at Bill's feet. After they'd eaten, Bill lit up a pipe, and the comforting scent of tobacco wafted towards her. I'm for my bed now, Catherine said, giving a wide yawn. Coming, Cecily? Even though she too felt exhausted, the incredible starry skies and the fact she was actually sitting in the middle of the African bush made Cecily want to hold on to the moment a while longer. I'll join you in a minute. Okay. Night, everyone, she said as she stood up, and Bobby did too. Hi, it's been a long day, Bobby agreed. We'll see you in the morning, bright and early. Bobby and Catherine retreated to their separate tents, while Naigassi and the other two Maasai left the fire and walked out into the darkness. Cecily could see them stationed around the perimeter of the camp, then suddenly realized she was all alone with Bill. How did you find today? He asked her as he stirred the fire with a stick. Well, it's been just incredible. I feel privileged, even if it was scary sometimes. My adrenaline level was sky high all day. Are you an adventurer, Cecily? Bill stared at her with that deep gaze of his. Or do you prefer to play it safe? I'm not sure. I mean, coming to Africa has changed me already. Maybe I'm still finding out who I am. Perhaps none of us ever truly find out who we are. You're definitely an adventurer, surely. Maybe I wouldn't have been if life hadn't made me one. I was training for the law in England, and then, well, war and love came, and my life was altered irrevocably. So, Miss Huntley Morgan, what are you really doing here in Africa? Visiting my godmother. Cecily shrugged, unable to meet his gaze. It's patently obvious to me that you're running away from something. You have the look. How do you know that? Because I had the same look when I arrived here originally too. The question is, will you run back? I have absolutely no idea. Now, I must get some sleep. Cecily stood up. Thank you for including me in this, Bill. I swear I will never forget it. Good night. She nodded at him and crossed the few yards to the tent she shared with Catherine and crawled inside. Catherine was already snoring gently on her pallet, so Cecily removed her boots, then wriggled her toes in relief and lay down fully clothed, drawing the rough blanket across her body to ward off the chill of the night. She lay thinking that, despite his brusqueness and his propensity for embarrassing her,